the perfection of wisdom and the Sutras of the disciples. In addition, persons who belong to the vehicle of the Bodhisattvas may give up and abandon this perfection of wisdom, which nourishes the cognition of the all-knowing, and decide to look for sutras which do not nourish it. Furthermore, those do not train themselves in this perfection of wisdom who do not want to train in worldly and supramundane spiritual dharmas, nor to go forth to them. As they do not train in perfect wisdom, they cannot go forth to worldly and supramundane spiritual dharmas. Those people of limited intelligence get rid of and abandon the perfection of wisdom, which is the root of the comprehension of worldly and supramundane spiritual dharmas as they really are, and instead decide to look for support in what are mere branches. Just as if a dog would spurn a morsel of food given to him by his master and prefer to take a mouthful of water from a servant, just so, in the future, some persons belonging to the vehicle of the Bodhisattvas will spurn this perfection of wisdom, which is the root of the cognition of the all-knowing, and decide to look for the core, for growth, for Buddhahood in the vehicle of the disciples and Pratyeka Buddhas, which really corresponds to branches, leaves, and foliage. This also should be known as done to them by Mara. For those people of small intelligence will not cognize that the perfection of wisdom alone nourishes the cognition of the all-knowing. They get rid of, abandon, and spurn the perfection of wisdom, and decide to study as superior to it other sutras, those which welcome the level of a disciple or Pratyeka Buddha. They should be compared to branches, leaves, and foliage. For a bodhisattva should not train in the same way in which persons belonging to the vehicle of the disciples or Pratyeka Buddhas are trained. How then are the disciples and Pratyeka Buddhas trained? They make up their minds that one single self we shall tame, one single self we shall pacify, one single self we shall lead to final nirvana. Thus, they undertake exercises which are intended to bring about wholesome roots for the sake of taming themselves, pacifying themselves, leading themselves to nirvana. A bodhisattva should certainly not in such a way train himself. On the contrary, he should train himself thus: my own self I will place in suchness, and so that all the world might be helped, I will place all beings into suchness, and I will lead to nirvana the whole immeasurable world of beings. With that intention should a bodhisattva undertake all the exercises which bring about the wholesome roots. But he should not boast about them. Imagine a man who, unable to see an elephant, would try to determine his color and shape. In the darkness he would touch and examine the foot of the elephant, and decide that the color and shape of the elephant should be inferred from his foot. Would that be an intelligent thing to do? Subhuti said, No, Lord. The Lord said, The same is true of those persons who belong to the vehicle of the bodhisattvas who do not understand this perfection of wisdom, and ask no questions about it, but, while desirous of full enlightenment, spurn it and prefer to look for the sutras which welcome the level of a disciple or of a Pratyeka Buddha. Also this has been done to them by Mara. Just as if a person who desires jewels would not look for them in the great ocean, but in a puddle of a cow's footprint, and would thus in effect equate the great ocean with the water in a cow's footprint. Would he be a very intelligent person? Subhuti said, No, Lord. The Lord said, The same applies to persons who belong to the vehicle of the bodhisattvas, if, though they have got this perfection of wisdom, they nevertheless cut themselves off from it, without plunging or probing into it, and who prefer the sutras which welcome the level of disciples or Pratyeka Buddhas, through advocating a dwelling of unconcerned inactivity, and which do not recommend the vehicle of the bodhisattvas, but only the taming, appeasing nirvana of one single self. The decision to win seclusion, to win the fruits of a holy life, from the fruit of a stream winner to Pratyeka Buddhahood, to enter parinirvana after one has, in this very life, freed thought without further clinging from the outflows, That means to be associated with the level of a disciple or Pratyeka Buddha. Not to that should bodhisattvas raise their thoughts. For when they have set out in the great vehicle, bodhisattvas put on the great armor. Their thoughts should not be raised to any unconcernedness whatsoever, for they are real men and women, leaders of the world, promoters of the world's weal. Therefore, they should constantly and always be trained in the 6 perfections. But those persons who belong to the vehicle of the bodhisattvas, and who, without knowing and understanding the sutras associated with the 6 perfections, spurn this perfection of wisdom, and prefer the sutras which welcome the level of disciple or Pratyeka Buddha, their wholesome root is immature, their intelligence is limited and poor, their resoluteness but weak. They resemble a mason or a mason's apprentice who would want to build a palace of the size of the Vajrayanta palace, and who would take its measure from measuring the car of sun or moon. A similar procedure is adopted by those who reject the perfection of wisdom and try to find all knowledge through sutras associated with the level of disciples and Pratyeka Buddhas, sutras which recommend the taming, appeasing, and nirvana of nothing more than one self only. If they would look for such sutras and train with this intention, would these bodhisattvas be very intelligent? Subhuti said, No, Lord. The Lord said, This also has been done to them by Mara. Suppose a person who first sees the universal monarch and determines from the signs of what he sees his complexion, shape, beauty, and majesty. He would then do the same with the commander of a fort. If he were unable to make a distinction, if he were to say of the commander of a fort, just like that is the universal monarch in complexion, shape, beauty, and majesty. If he would, in other words, equate a universal monarch with the commander of a fort, would that be an intelligent thing to do? Subhuti said, No, Lord. The Lord said, The same applies to persons who belong to the bodhisattva vehicle and who in the future will reject this perfection of wisdom and seek for all knowledge through sutras associated with the level of disciple or Pratyeka Buddha. This also has been done to them by Mara. On the contrary, I certainly do not say that bodhisattvas should seek for all knowledge through the sutras associated with the level of disciple or Pratyeka Buddha. Bodhisattvas can certainly not go forth to supreme enlightenment unless they are trained in what the Tathagata has announced in the perfection of wisdom as the skill and means of a bodhisattva. For the full knowledge of a bodhisattva is stupid in other sutras. Therefore, then, Subhuti, the Tathagata, seeing this advantage in the perfection of wisdom, by manifold methods shows it to the bodhisattvas, instigates and introduces to it, fills them with enthusiasm about it, makes them rejoice at it, entrusts them with it, in the hope that thus the bodhisattvas may become irreversible to full enlightenment. Subhuti, do those bodhisattvas appear to be very intelligent, who, having obtained and met with the irreversible, the great vehicle, will again abandon it, turn away from it, and prefer an inferior vehicle? Subhuti said, No, Lord. The Lord said, If a starving man would refuse superior and excellent food, and prefer to eat inferior and stale food, would he be very intelligent? Subhuti said, No, Lord. The Lord said, Just so, Subhuti. In the future, some bodhisattvas will refuse this perfection of wisdom, will prefer the sutras associated with the level of disciple or Pratyeka Buddha, and will seek for all knowledge through the sutras which welcome the level of disciple or Pratyeka Buddha. Would these bodhisattvas be very intelligent? Subhuti said, No, Lord. The Lord said, Also this has been done to them by Mara. A man or woman who had got a priceless gem, and who considered it equal to a gem of inferior value and quality, would he be an intelligent person? Subhuti said, No, Lord. The Lord said, Just so, there will be in the future some persons belonging to the vehicle of the Bodhisattvas who, though they have got this deep, brightly shining gem of perfect wisdom, will nevertheless think that it should be considered equal with the vehicle of the disciples and Pratyeka Buddhas, and will decide to seek for all knowledge and for skill and means on the level of disciple or Pratyeka Buddha. Would they be very intelligent? Subhuti said. No, Lord. The Lord said, this also has been done to them by Mara,